Your phone hasn't buzzed in 3 hours. Mine hasn't buzzed in 3 weeks. And no, I'm not unpopular. Well, maybe I am, but that's not the point here. I've had my phone on Do Not Disturb mode for so long that I genuinely forgot notification sounds were a thing. The other day, someone's phone went off in a coffee shop, and I looked around like, what is that demonic noise? So today, we're diving into something oddly specific but weirdly universal: the psychology of people who keep their phones on DND mode permanently. Not just during meetings or at night, I'm talking about the people who treat notifications like they're optional side quests in the game of life. And here's the thing. This isn't really about phones at all. It's about control, boundaries, and how we relate to a world that's constantly demanding our attention. But let me tell you something that might sting a little. Bomb number one, if you're always on D&D, you're probably running from something. Not in a dramatic cinematic way, but in a quiet, I can't deal with one more thing right now kind of way. You're not antisocial, you're just maxed out. Bomb number two, the people who are always on D&D aren't actually less connected than everyone else. They're just choosy about when they connect. And honestly, that drives people crazy because it means you're not immediately available. And in our culture, being unavailable feels like a personal attack. Bomb number three, here's the truth bomb that might actually explode. You know why you keep your phone on D&D? Because deep down, you know that most of what comes through isn't urgent, isn't meaningful, and isn't going to make your life better. You've just admitted something most people won't, that we've all been conditioned to treat every notification like it's a fire alarm, when really it's just someone poking you on LinkedIn. So yeah, if you're feeling a little called out right now, welcome to the club. We meet never because we all have our phones on silent. Let's talk about what's actually going on in the brain of a chronic D&D user. First up, control and autonomy. People who live in D&D mode tend to have a high need for control over their environment, not in a toxic micromanaging way, but in an I need to decide when I engage with the world way. Every notification is someone else's setting your agenda. D&D mode is basically saying, actually, I'll set my own agenda, thanks. There's research showing that constant interruptions, even just the expectation of interruptions, increases cortisol levels. That's your stress hormone. So people on D&D aren't being dramatic when they say notifications stress them out. Their bodies are literally responding to the chaos of constant pings. Then there's the introvert connection, though it's not quite that simple. Plenty of extroverts use D&D too, but what they usually have in common is something called high sensory processing sensitivity. Basically, these are people who get overwhelmed by too much input. Notifications aren't just information, they're sensory assaults. Every buzz is a tiny interruption in your focus, your peace, your train of thought. And here's something interesting. D&D users often score high on something called conscientiousness. They're the people who actually want to finish what they start. They know that if they let their phone interrupt them every 3 minutes, they'll never actually complete anything meaningful. So D&D mode becomes a productivity tool disguised as a social boundary. Speaking of boundaries, let me set one real quick. If you're enjoying this exploration into why some of us treat our phones like temperamental houseplants that we check on once a day, hit that subscribe button, because we dive into the quirky psychology behind everyday behaviors, and trust me, there's more where this came from. And hey, stick around, because in a minute, I'm going to tell you about the dark side of D&D culture that nobody talks about. Yes, there's a dark side. There's always a dark side. Now let's talk about what happens socially when you're that person who's always on D&D. People get weird about it. They take it personally. They'll say things like, I texted you 4 hours ago, with the energy of someone whose text should have been treated like a presidential alert. And you're just there like, yeah, I saw it. I'll respond when I'm ready. What's happening is we live in a culture of immediacy. We've been trained to expect instant responses. When someone doesn't provide that, it feels like rejection, even when it's not. The D&D person isn't rejecting you, they're rejecting the system that says they owe everyone immediate access to their attention. But here's the flip side, and this is the dark side I mentioned. D&D mode can become a shield. It can turn from a healthy boundary into an avoidance mechanism. There's a difference between I'm protecting my peace and I'm ignoring the people who care about me because genuine connection makes me uncomfortable. Some people use D&D mode not because they're overwhelmed, but because they're emotionally unavailable. They're not creating space for focus, they're creating distance from intimacy. And that's worth examining, because if you're on D&D as a lifestyle but you also feel lonely or disconnected, those two things might be related. The healthiest D&D users have figured out this balance. They're unavailable by default, but intentionally available to the people and things that matter. They're not hiding, they're just being selective.
So what does it really mean to be someone who's always on D&D? I think it's actually a form of quiet rebellion. We live in an attention economy where every app, every platform, every notification is engineered to grab your focus and keep it. Being on D&D is like saying, not today, algorithm, not today, group chat, not today, world that thinks I should be reachable 24/7. It's also a recognition of something profound. Your attention is your life. Where your attention goes, your life goes. If you're letting your phone dictate where your attention goes every 3 minutes, you're not really living your life, you're living in reaction mode. People on D&D have often realized, consciously or unconsciously, that they get to choose. They get to decide what deserves their immediate attention and what can wait. And spoiler alert, most things can wait. But here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop being available all the time you are available becomes more meaningful. Your responses become more thoughtful. Your presence becomes more present. You're not distracted by the next notification because there is no next notification. In a weird way, D&D mode isn't about disconnecting, it's about connecting on your own terms, which is actually a deeper form of connection than the shallow, constant, half-present connection that most people mistake for availability. So if you're someone who lives on D&D, know this. You're not broken, you're not antisocial, and you're not doing it wrong. You're just refusing to let your phone turn your brain into a notification center. And if you're someone who doesn't use D&D but is constantly feeling frazzled, overwhelmed, or like you can't focus, maybe give it a try, just for a day. See what happens when you decide that the world can wait while you finish your coffee in peace. All right, now it's your turn. Drop a comment below. Are you team D&D or team I need to see every notification the second it comes in? And if you're on D&D, what made you switch? Let's talk about it. If this resonated with you, or if you violently disagreed with every word I said, hit that like button and subscribe. We're exploring the weird psychology of everyday life, one quiet rebellion at a time. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have 17 unread texts from 3 days ago to ignore. I'll get to them when I'm ready.